My son sent a message to our family WhatsApp group. He figured it would be best if Dad kept his distance for a while. My daughter-in-law reacted with a thumbs-up emoji. I replied, "Understood. I will respect that, and I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage and the monthly transfers of $1,800. That night my phone exploded with desperate calls. Do you know that feeling when the ground just disappears beneath your feet? I was in the kitchen, stirring the aromatic chili and smoked paprika filling for my famous chicken casserole on the stove, the one my grandmother taught me, the one my son Marcus had always loved since he was a little boy. The comforting steam rose, filling my small condo with the smell of happy memories. My cell phone vibrated on the counter. It was a notification from the family group chat. I wiped my hands on the light blue apron I've worn for years, stained with shared meals and history, and picked up the phone. My heart was calm. Maybe it was Marcus organizing Sunday dinner, or my granddaughter Skylar sending a drawing. At 68 years old, these small joys still brightened my day. But what I read on that screen froze my blood. Family, we've decided it's best if Dad keeps his distance for now. We're going through a delicate moment and need space. Thanks for understanding. 47 words. That was all it took for them to destroy. 30 years of sacrifices, sleepless nights, hands calloused from construction work and dreams swallowed so theirs could come true. My eye scanned the message 3 times, trying to rearrange the letters into something that made sense, something that wouldn't split my chest in half. But there it was, my son, my only child, the boy who came from me, whom I raised alone after losing my wife, Diane, in an accident when I was 35. He was asking me to disappear from his life. And right below, like a final stab, I saw Jessica's blue thumb, a thumbs up as if it were a funny video, as if it were just any news update, as if it weren't my life, my place in the family I built brick by brick. My sister Martha was in the group silence. My brother-in-law Reginald, too, silence. No one said a thing. No one defended me. No one asked Marcus, "What is this all about?" I turned but off the stove, the casserole filling stopped bubbling, but something inside me kept boiling. I sat down in the dark wooden kitchen chair I had brought from my mother's house when she passed, and let the phone drop into my lap. How did I get here? I, who worked 16 hours a day as a contractor to pay for his private school tuition. I, who never took a vacation because every dollar counted toward making sure he had everything. I, who could have remarried. I had offers. Yes, I was still young, but I chose not to bring anyone home so as not to confuse my boy. So he would grow up knowing he was my absolute priority. Now at 68, with calloused hands and a back bent from carrying so much weight, I was being discarded like old furniture that didn't match the new decor. But do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't his words. It was her thumbs up. That tiny, casual, almost automatic gesture that showed me exactly what I was to them. An inconvenience. I took a deep breath. The smell of the casserole was still in the air, but now it made me nauseous. I thought about all the times I swallowed my opinion just to not seem controlling. All the times I smiled when Jessica treated me coldly. All the times I pretended not to notice they were excluding me, hoping it was just a phase, that things would get better. I picked up the phone again. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness, from a cold, lucid anger I'd never felt before. I started typing. Every word was a decision, every comma an election. Understood, Marcus. I will respect your request, and I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage. $2,700 a month. The monthly transfers, $1,800, and Skylar's health insurance, $400. I hope you get the space you need. With love, Dad. I hit send. Then I threw the phone onto the couch, returned to the kitchen, and dumped all that casserole, filling hours of work, Memories of 3 generations straight into the trash. Because right there in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Love without respect feeds no one. That night, my phone exploded with desperate calls, but I was no longer available to answer. And that is the story of how I finally learned to value the only person who always valued me, myself. If you want to know how it all started, how I reached this breaking point, and what happened after that night, stick with me. Subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will make you rethink every relationship in your life. Let me tell you how I became the intruder in the family I myself built. Because nobody wakes up one day and just decides to be humiliated. You know, it's a slow, quiet process, like rust eating metal. You only realize the damage when it's almost too late. It all began 3 years ago, on a Saturday in March. I was in my living room fixing a shelf when Marcus called me, excited. "Dad, I met someone special. I want you to meet Jessica." My heart leaped. My son, at 35, had always been reserved about relationships. Hearing him so radiant filled me with hope. Maybe he had finally found someone to raise a family with, to be happy. The first time I saw her, I thought she was beautiful. Long, straight hair, always dressed impeccably. Perfectly manicured nails, the kind of gel manicure that costs a fortune. She smiled at me, gave me a hug, and said she'd heard a lot about me. "You're an inspiration," she said with that sweet voice I later learned to distrust. The first few months were normal dinners, lunches, courteous conversations, but there were already small, almost imperceptible signs. Like that time I brought my famous peach cobbler with a buttery lattice top, a recipe I always made for Marcus on his birthday. Jessica looked at the cobbler, smiled, and said, "That's lovely, Mr. Turner, but we're trying to eat healthier. You know, Marcus even goes to the gym now." And she pushed the cobbler to the corner of the table as if it were something shameful. Marcus didn't even protest. Then came the small wedding in a rented venue. I offered to help with the preparations, but Jessica already had everything under control with her mother, Eleanor. I was left with the role of a guest at my own son's wedding. But the worst really started when they got married and the requests began to arrive. First, they were small. "Dad, can you lend us $300 for an online course Jessica needs to take? It's important for her career." I gave the money without hesitation. After all, she was my daughter-in-law, part of the family. Then 2 weeks later, "Dad, our refrigerator broke down. Can you help with $900? I helped. A month later, "Dad, Jessica's car has a problem. Bring $250 for repairs." I helped again. I always gave, always, because I thought, he's my son. If he needs it, I help. That's what fathers do. But then came the big request. Marcus came to my house one Thursday night with that slightly embarrassed look he had when he was about to ask for something major. He sat on the sofa, fidgeted with his hands, and finally let it out. "Dad, Jessica and I found the perfect house. It's in a secure gated subdivision, 3 bedrooms, good area for when we have kids. But we need $65,000 for the down payment." $65,000? My stomach churned. It was almost everything I had saved. The land my late wife Diane had bought back in the 80s had appreciated over time. It was my security, my plan B, if something happened to me. But when I looked into my son's eyes, I saw Diane there. The same honey color, the same hope. And I thought, what do I need security for if it's not to help those I love? I sold the land. I gave them the $65,000. Marcus hugged me tight. He said I was the best dad in the world, that they would never forget this. Jessica sent a text. "The thank you, father-in-law. You're an angel." 3 months later, they moved into the house. But when the first mortgage payment came due, $2,700 a month, Marcus called me anxiously. "Dad, we can't make it. Jessica hasn't passed the exam she was studying for yet, and my salary isn't enough to cover everything. Can you just help out for a few months until we get organized? Just for a few months. I knew it was a lie. Deep down, I already knew it. But parents have this flaw. We believe because we want to believe. I took over the mortgage, and then the monthly transfers began. First, it was $900 to help with household expenses. Then it turned into $1,300. After that, $1,800. Always with the same excuse. Just until we stabilize. I cut expenses, canceled my private health insurance, and stuck with the basic plan. I stopped buying new clothes. I started eating more beans and rice, less meat. But I sent the money every blessed month because I thought I was investing in my son's happiness. But the more I gave, the less I received in return. The Sunday dinners, which used to be sacred, started to space out. Dad, we're tired. We're staying home today. Or, Dad, Jessica invited her family over. We'll see you next time. When I called, Marcus would answer, rushed, always in a hurry. Hey, Dad, I'm in the middle of something. I'll call you back later. And he never called back. When Skylar was born, my beautiful little granddaughter, with big eyes and round cheeks, I thought things would get better, but they got worse. Jessica didn't want me to hold the baby much. She said it was important to respect their space as parents. I, who had raised a son alone, now had to ask permission to hold my own granddaughter. And Marcus just nodded in agreement, always by her side. That's how, little by little, I went from being a father to being an ATM. Until that dinner came. The dinner that changed everything. But I'll tell you about that in the next part. Because what happened that night was the final straw that broke a glass I didn't even know was full. 3 weeks before that message that destroyed everything, I received an invitation that filled me with hope. The foolish hope of someone who still believes things can improve. Jessica called me on a Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Turner, we'd like to invite you over for dinner on the Saturday. It's been a while since we really saw each other, hasn't it? Her voice was strangely animated, almost forced, but I didn't want to be suspicious. 4 months had passed since I had set foot in their house. 4 months since they became too busy to have me over. So this invitation seemed like a truce, a sign that maybe I had exaggerated my worries. I spent the whole week preparing. I got my hair cut at the barber shop, $25 I hadn't planned to spend, but I wanted to look sharp. I chose my sea green linen polo shirt, the one Marcus once said looked great on me. I bought a bottle of premium bourbon because Jessica was always talking about fine liquor on social media, and I baked my signature lemon meringue pie. That pie was special, not just a recipe but a living memory. When Marcus was 7 and hospitalized for 3 days with pneumonia, I promised him that when he got out, I'd make him the best lemon meringue pie in the world. I spent all afternoon in the tiny kitchen of our old apartment, whipping egg whites with a fork because we didn't have a mixer. When he tasted the first bite, his little eyes lit up. Dad, this is the best thing I've ever ought or eaten. Since then, whenever he was sad, anxious, or needed comfort, I made that pie. I arrived at their house on Saturday at 7 p.m. sharp. I rang the bell, holding the pie in both hands, feeling my heart beating faster than normal. Jessica opened the door in fuzzy pink slippers. She hadn't even changed. She was wearing sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bunch. Hi, Mr. Turner, come on in. A hug, but no genuine smile. I entered. The house smelled like takeout. Stacks of pizza boxes were piled on the kitchen counter. Pizza. They invited me for dinner and ordered pizza. Sorry, we ran out of time to cook, Jessica said without looking me in the eye, already returning to the couch where she was checking her phone. Marcus appeared from the laundry area, drying his hands with a towel. Hey, Dad. A quick mechanical kiss on the cheek. Sit down, make yourself comfortable. I stood there in the living room, still holding the pie and the bourbon, feeling completely out of place. Skylar was on the floor playing with dolls. When she saw me, she ran over. Grandpa. My heart warmed. At least someone there was still happy to see me. "Skylar, come here. Let Grandpa sit down," Jessica yelled in a dry tone. I put the pie in the refrigerator. No one commented. No one said it smelled good or thanked me for bringing it. The pie just existed there, ignored. We sat down to eat. Or rather, they ate pizza straight from the box, or while I took 2 small slices and forced myself to swallow them. The conversation was strange, full of awkward pauses. That's when Jessica started. "You know, Mr. Turner, I was watching a documentary the other day about how older generations have a hard time understanding modern life." She let out a little laugh, looking at Marcus as if sharing an inside joke. Marcus smiled back. "Yeah, it's true. The world has changed a lot." "It really has," Jessica continued, grabbing another slice of pizza. "There are a lot of parents who can't let go of their kids. They cling to this emotional dependence. You know, they think their kid has to be available all the time, that they have to account, though, for everything." My stomach tightened. She was talking about me without saying my name, but she was doing it. "I find that so suffocating," she continued now, looking directly at me. "Every couple needs their own space, their privacy. You can't have people coming and going all the time, wanting to give their opinion about everything." I swallowed hard. I never wanted to be intrusive. "No, one is talking about you specifically, Mr. Turner," Jessica interrupted with a fake smile. "But it was about me." Every word was a stone thrown in my direction. Marcus remained silent. He didn't defend me. He didn't say, "Dad isn't like that." He just nodded and grabbed out more pizza. The night wore on. I tried to play with Skylar, but Jessica quickly said it was time for the child to go to bed. I offered to help with the dishes. It was just the pizza boxes, but Jessica said everything was handled. At 9:30, I stood up to leave. No one asked me to stay a little longer. "Oh, Dad, wait," Marcus said when I was already at the door. My heart jumped. Maybe he was going to give me a real hug to apologize for the strange atmosphere. "Did you transfer this month's money already? The mortgage payment is due tomorrow." Money, that's what it was all about. "I transferred it on Wednesday," I replied, feeling something break inside me. "Ah, perfect. Thanks. Drive safe." I left that house and got into my car. I didn't cry yet. No. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, looking at that illuminated house, the house I was paying for, and wondering when I had stopped being welcome in it. I drove to my condo on autopilot. When I walked in, I went straight to the refrigerator. I had saved a slice of the lemon meringue pie for myself. I ate it standing alone in my silent kitchen, and the taste wasn't the same anymore, because I finally understood. No matter how much you love, no matter how much you give, if there is no respect on the other side, you are only feeding yourself with crumbs. 2 days later, I would discover something that would transform that pain into a decision, and it was by hearing something I should never have heard. There are things in life that once you hear them, you can't unhear them. They are engraved in your memory, like scars that burn every time you remember them. What happened that Thursday was exactly like that. 2 days after that horrible dinner, I woke up with Skylar on my mind. My little granddaughter would turn 6 the following week, and I had spent the entire month carving a little wooden train for her. Not just any train, but a special handmade one, painted blue with white details, just like the one I had as a child. I carved her name on the side of the engine car, Skylar, with love from Grandpa Eli. I also made little tracks for it. I added a small red whistle. Every cut was a prayer. Every detail was love transformed into wood and paint. I wanted Skylar to have something no store could sell, something made by her grandpa's hands, loaded with history. I called Marcus to let him know I would drop off the gift. No one answered. I tried Jessica's cell phone, also no answer. I sent a text, seen, but no reply. I decided to go anyway. It was 2:45 p.m., the time Skylar was getting back from school, could leave the gift and go. I didn't even need to go inside if they were busy. When I arrived, the gate was slightly ajar. The gardener probably forgot to close it. I walked up to the front door, holding the train wrapped in pink paper. I rang the bell. Nothing. I rang again. Silence. But I could hear voices coming from inside. The TV, perhaps. I tried the handle. The door was unlocked. "Hello? Anyone home?" I mumbled, pushing the door open. Slowly, I walked into the living room. No one. The house was quiet, but the voices continued. They were coming from the kitchen. It wasn't the TV. It was people talking. My instinct told me to leave, but something stronger pulled me forward. I needed to know why they were ignoring me so much. I walked down the hall. The kitchen door was slightly ajar, and then I heard Jessica's voice, loud and clear. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't stand that man anymore." I stopped. My heart raced. She was on the phone with Eleanor. Her mother always sticking her nose into everything. The other day he came here trying to teach me how to make oatmeal for Skylar. As if I don't know how to take care of my own daughter. I pretend to listen, but inside I'm boiling. My hand squeezed the train. I never taught her anything. I just commented once, one single time, that oatmeal was good for children's digestion because the pediatrician had told me when Marcus was little. And Marcus doesn't say anything. Eleanor's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "Oh, he's the same as always, you know. He says he's his father, that he's always been this way, that we have to be patient." Jessica's voice dripped irritation. But patience has limits. The man pays for the house, pays the bills, and then thinks that gives him the right to control our lives. My legs started to tremble. That's when I heard my son's voice. "Jess, hang that up. You can finish talking to Eleanor later." "I'm almost done. Hold on, Mom. I'll call you back." Silence. Then Marcus's tired voice. "You need to have more patience with him. He's alone. We're all he has." "Exactly. That's why he clings to us so much. That's not healthy, Marcus." I know. Then why don't you do anything?" "Look, I didn't marry you to have my father-in-law practically living inside our house all the time. I brought you some treats. I brought something for Skylar. Can I come over on Sunday?" A pause that was too long. "I'll talk to him," Marcus finally said. "Talk? What kind of talk? Because the way you talk, he'll be back here again soon." Jessica let out a dry laugh. "Look, I know he pays for things, okay? I'm not an idiot. But that doesn't give him the right to control our routine. And another thing, he's the anchor weighing us down, not the other way around. If he didn't have us, what would he do with his life? Sit alone in that old condo counting money. Anchor weighing us down." Those two words exploded inside my chest like a bomb. I, who had worked out since I was 15. I, who raised a son alone. I, who sold everything I had to give them comfort. I was an anchor weighing them down. "Don't talk like that, Jess." Marcus's voice sounded weak, but he didn't say she was wrong. He only asked her not to talk like that. Not that it was wrong. "I'm telling the truth and you know it." Jessica opened the refrigerator. I heard the noise. "We need to find a solution for this. Either he understands that he needs to give us space, or we'll have to be more direct. Tell him he needs to step back a little. For his own good, too." I couldn't hear anymore. My vision blurred. I took 2 steps back, my legs shaking, holding the train against my chest as if it were a shield. I left that house the same way I entered. Invisible, unwanted, disposable. I got in the car, and only there, with the doors locked, did I break down. I cried like I hadn't cried since Diane's funeral. I cried because it hurts. It hurts in a way that can't be fixed. To discover you mean so little to someone you love so much. The train was on my lap. That blue paint, those white details, that name carved with such care. Skylar, with love from Grandpa Eli. I took the train back home. It never reached my granddaughter's hands. And for 3 days, 3 long days, I locked myself in my condo and let something die inside me. The illusion that I still had a place in that family. But do you know what happens when something dies inside us? Sometimes something else is born in its place. And what was born in me was something I never imagined I would have the courage to feel. Clarity. I spent 3 days locked in this condo, not eating well, not sleeping well, unable to do anything but ruminate on those words. He's the anchor weighing us down, not the other way around. The first day I just cried. I cried until I had no more tears, until my throat hurt, until my eyes were so swollen I could barely open them. I ignored calls from Martha. I ignored messages from the church group. I ignored the whole world. The second day, the anger arrived. A dull rage that burned inside like forgotten embers. I walked back and forth in the living room, talking to myself, reviewing every moment of humiliation, every slight, every time. I swallowed my dignity and pretended everything was fine. I picked up Skylar's train, still on the table, the one I brought back and never gave her, and almost threw it in the trash. But I couldn't because it wasn't her fault. It wasn't the fault of a 6-year-old child that the adults around her had forgotten what gratitude was. On the third day, something changed. I woke up at 5 a.m. I had barely slept, but when I opened my eyes, my mind was strangely clear. I got up, went to the gossip room, and looked at myself in the mirror. What I saw frightened me. A 68-year-old man stared back at me with deep wrinkles around his eyes, uncombed white hair and slumped shoulders. But it wasn't the marks of age that scared me. It was the expression. It was defeat. It was resignation. It was surrender. And suddenly, you know what? I saw my father, Robert, in that reflection. My father who raised 5 kids on a farm all by himself, after my mother left with another man. He worked until his bones ached, until his hands were rough from so much labor, until his spine bent from carrying so much weight. And do you know what he told me once, shortly before he died? Eli, never let anyone make you feel small, because you're not. You are the backbone of your life. And a backbone doesn't bend. It either breaks or it holds. You choose. I looked deeper into the mirror and made my decision. I was going to hold. I left the bathroom, sat down at the kitchen table, and opened my old laptop, the one Marcus gave me 5 years ago, saying I needed to enter the digital world. I turned it on and waited for it to load. My hands were still trembling, but no longer from weakness, from determination. I went into my digital banking history and started printing every transfer receipt, every PayPal proof of payment, every mortgage payment. I organized everything by date in clear folders, as if I were building a legal case. March 2022, $2,700 for the mortgage, $900 in aid, $3,600. April 2022, $2,700 for the mortgage, plus $1,050 in aid, $3,750. May 2022, $2,700 for the mortgage, plus $1,200 in aid, $3,900. I kept adding, month by month, year by year. The amounts increased over time, from $1,800 a month to $3,000, sometimes $3,500 when there were emergencies, air conditioner repair, car problems, Skylar's private school. When I reached the total, my stomach turned. $195,000. $195,000 in 3 years. That didn't include the $65,000 for the down payment on the house. That didn't include the gifts, the clothes I bought for Skylar, the meals I paid for, the small favors that became routine. I printed the full statement, 42 pages of receipts. I put everything in a blue folder and wrote on the COVID in black pen, transfer history, Elijah to Marcus and Jessica, 2022-2025. Then I went to the bureau drawer where I keep old documents and took out the deed to their house. Because yes, I had a copy after all. I gave the down payment. I paid. I had the right to read every line. Marcus Augustus Turner and Jessica Costa Turner. My name didn't appear anywhere. Not as a guarantor, not as a donor, not as anything legally. I had no rights over that house. But morally, that house was mine. I picked up the phone and called Attorney Miller, a lawyer I met years ago when he needed a suit repaired in I-End. Came to my workshop. We became friends. He always told me, "Haley, anything you need, you can call me." It was time to need. "Attorney Miller, it's Eli. I need a consultation. It's urgent." He received me in his office that same afternoon. I showed him the receipts, the deed, and told him the whole story. He listened in silence, glasses perched on his nose, looking through the documents intently. When I finished, he sighed deeply. "Eli, legally speaking, you have two options. You either consider everything a gift, and then you can't recover it, or you file a collection lawsuit claiming they were unpaid loans. But I never made a contract. I never asked them to sign anything. I know, but the receipts are all here. And more importantly, there's a history of communication between you. Texts, emails, voicemails, where they asked you for the money." He looked at me over his glasses. I took out my phone, opened WhatsApp, and started scrolling. "Dad, I need help this month. It's really tight here. Dad, can you deposit another $300? An unexpected bill came up. Dad, thanks for the help. As soon as we stabilize, we'll pay you back. We'll pay you back." That promise appeared in at least 10 different messages. "We'll pay you back. We'll pay you back." They never paid there. I showed it Attorney Miller. They always said they were going to pay. He smiled for the first time then. They weren't gifts, they were loans, and loans have to be repaid. I spent the next 2 hours in that office putting together a complete assessment. Attorney Miller was clear. I could go to court, but it would be long, exhausting, and painful. Or I could do something more direct. "Just stop paying," he said. "There's no contract obligating you. The house is in their name, not yours. You can decide at any time that you no longer want to support this." And what can they do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The most they can do is try to sue you for breach of verbal agreement. But with these messages saying they were going to pay you back, you have much more power to accuse them of breach than they do to accuse you of anything. I left that office with the blue folder under my arm and a certainty in my chest. I wasn't an anchor weighing them down. I was the structure, and structures can be removed. Over the next few days, I organized everything. I photographed every document. I saved every conversation. I prepared everything as if I were setting up a chessboard and was about to deliver checkmate. But before that, I needed to wave for their move, because I knew in my soul, they would do something. Jessica didn't have patience. She would pressure Marcus, and Marcus, weak as he always was when it came to her, would give in. I didn't imagine it would be so fast. 5 days after my conversation with Attorney Miller, my cell phone vibrated with a notification from the family group chat. That's when everything changed. I was organizing my toolbox that Thursday afternoon. Colored screwdrivers scattered on the table, nuts and bolts separated by size, tools being tested one by one. It was a task I did almost in a trance, my fingers working alone while my mind was far away, planning the next steps. Since the conversation with Attorney Miller, I had been sleeping better. Not because the pain was gone, but because now I had action. And action heals better than any medicine. My cell phone was on the table next to the screwdriver set. When it vibrated, I didn't look right away. I thought it was an ad or a message from the church or Martha sending me another recipe video she knew I would never make. But then it vibrated again, and again, and again. I picked up the phone. There were notifications from the Turner family group, the group Marcus created when Skylar was born, saying it would be to keep everyone connected. In practice, it became a dead space where no one really talked. They just sent good morning messages with flowers and birthday wishes. I opened the app and read, "Family. We've decided it's best if Dad keeps his distance for now. We're going through a delicate moment and need space. Thanks for understanding." I read it once, twice, 3 times. The words started dancing on the screen. My vision blurred. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't pain. It wasn't anger. It was a kind of disbelief mixed with relief. Yes, relief, because they had finally dropped the mask. I scrolled down right under Marcus's message, a blue thumb. Jessica Costa Turner reacted with thumbs up as if it were a post about the weather, as if it weren't the expulsion of her father-in-law, her daughter's grandfather, the man who supported that house. I looked at the other group members. Martha was there, Reginald too, my cousin Elaine. No one had said anything, just silence. That cowardly silence of those who see an injustice happen and prefer to pretend it's not their business. I put the phone back on the table. I took a deep breath. My hands weren't trembling anymore. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank slowly. I looked out the window. It was a clear afternoon with few clouds, the kind that deceives you into thinking everything is fine in the world. But it wasn't, and it would never be again. Not in the old way. I returned to the table, picked up the phone and started typing. Every word was a conscious choice. Every comma was a brick. I was laying in the wall I was building between them and me. "Understood, Marcus. Pause. Breathe. I will respect your request." Another pause. "Now for the good part. And I will also distance myself from paying your mortgage. $2,700 a month. The monthly transfers, $1,800. And Skylar's health insurance, $400. A final line. I hope you get the space you need. And finally, with love, Dad." I read it 3 times before hitting send. I wanted to make sure every word was perfect, objective, courteous, implacable. I pressed the send. The blue check marks appeared almost immediately. I silenced the phone, flipped it face down, and went back to my toolbox. I picked up a blue screwdriver and started testing it. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. Because for the first time in 3 years I had done something for myself. 15 minutes passed. Half an hour, an hour. At 7 p.m. I decided to eat dinner. I made a simple cheese and tomato omelet. I sat at the kitchen table and ate in peace, chewing slowly, savoring every bite. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't play music. Just silence. And that silence, for the first time in a long time, wasn't heavy with loneliness. It was light with freedom. At 9:30, went to shower. I left the phone in the living room, still face down. I took my time in the shower, letting the hot water wash away not only my body, but also 3 years of accumulated humiliation. When I got out, I dried myself calmly, put on the lotion, that brand I always bought but rarely used because I had to economize, and put on my most comfortable pajamas. It was almost 11 when I returned to the living room, and that's when I saw it. The phone was vibrating, literally vibrating on the table, moving sideways with so many notifications coming in at the same time, the screen turning on and off like a panicked hope heart. I picked up the phone. 47 missed calls, 23 from Marcus, 15 from Jessica, 9 from unknown numbers. Probably them calling from other phones when they saw I wasn't answering. And the messages. My God, the messages. Marcus 11:47. Dad, I need to talk to you urgently. Marcus 11:49. Dad, please answer. Marcus 11:52 p.m. Dad, don't do this, Marcus. 11:55 p.m. Dad, I didn't mean it that way, Marcus. 11:58 p.m. Dad, if we need to talk, just call me Jet. Ask at 12:28 a.m. Mr. T. Turner, I apologize if Marcus's message offended you. It wasn't our intention. Huh? We're going through some problems, and it came out wrong. Jessica, 12:45 a.m. Let's have lunch. Let's talk calmly. I'm sure we can fix this. Fix it, as if it were just a misunderstanding. As if 3 years of disrespect could be fixed with one meal. I didn't reply. On Saturday morning, Martha arrived. She didn't call ahead. She just rang the doorbell and yelled, "Ellie, it's me. Open up." I knew it was her by her voice. Martha was always direct, no beating around the bush. I opened the door. She entered like a hurricane in her sandals, hair pulled back in a ponytail, carrying a bag with still warm blueberry muffins. "I came to have breakfast with you, and I want to hear everything," she said, walking past me. "Straight to the kitchen. Put the water on. I brought good coffee, too." We sat at the little table while we ate. I told her everything, from the horrible dinner to the conversation I overheard to the group message and my reply. Martha listened in silence, chewing slowly, her eyes fixed on me. When I finished, she wiped her mouth with a napkin and said, "You did the right thing." My chest tightened. I didn't know I needed to hear that until I heard it. "Seriously, Eli, I've watched you fade these last few years. I saw how you became a shadow of yourself, chasing crumbs of affection from that boy you raised. And I didn't say anything." She sighed because I thought it wasn't my battle. But it was. "I should have woken you up a long time ago." "They're desperate," I murmured, "and they're going to get more desperate." Martha grabbed another muffin. "Now they're going to have to become real adults, pay their own bills, take responsibility for their own decisions. And you know what? I think it's the best thing you could have done for them." It doesn't feel that way. It never feels that way at first. She looked at me with that seriousness only older sisters have. But after the dust settles, maybe, just maybe, they'll understand what kind of man you are. Martha stayed with me the rest of the morning. We watched a bad movie on TV. We laughed at silly things. We ate chocolate pudding straight from the pan. For the first time in months, I felt light. When she left in the afternoon, she hugged me tight and whispered in my ear, "Don't back down, Eli. Promise me." I promise. But the truth was, I still didn't know if I could keep that promise. Because while my head was firm, my heart was still bleeding. On Sunday, they tried again. This time they sent Skylar. I heard her sweet little voice over the intercom. "Grandpa, it's me, Skylar. Daddy says you're sad. I brought you a drawing." My heart shattered. I pressed the button. "Hello, my love. Grandpa doesn't feel well today." "Okay, but I'm so happy to hear you made a drawing. Tell Dad to bring you another day." "Are you sick, Grandpa?" I closed my eyes. "No, sweetie, just tired. But Grandpa will feel better soon, okay? I love you." "I love you too, Skylar. More than anything." I released the button and collapsed onto the floor, crying because there are things we do that are right but hurt as if they were wrong, and keeping my distance from my granddaughter, even knowing it was her parents' fault, not mine, was one of those things. But I couldn't give in. Not now. Not after I had come this far. The mortgage payment was due on Monday, and that night, Marcus sent me the longest text I had ever received from him. "Dad, the payment is due. We can't pay it. I tried to get a loan at the bank and they wouldn't approve me. Jessica is desperate. Skylar asked about you 3 times today, and I don't know what to tell her. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please don't let us lose the house. Not because of pride. Please, not because of pride." He thought it was pride. I wrote slowly. "It's not pride, Marcus. It's dignity. You asked for space. I gave it to you. You called me an anchor weighing you down. I heard it. Now you need to understand that respect isn't asked for. It's earned. And when it's lost, sometimes it doesn't come back." I sent it and turned off my phone. That night I cried again. But this time it was a different cry. It wasn't despair. It was grief because I was burying the father I had been to make room for the man I needed to be. and this man no longer accepted crumbs. A week passed, 7 days of heavy silence from a cell phone. I kept off most of the time, nights when I woke up in the middle of the night wondering if I had done the right thing. That Wednesday, I was folding laundry in the living room when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Martha, but her face was different, tense, nervous. I opened the door. "We need to talk," she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "And you're not going to like what I have to tell you." My stomach churned. Did something happen to Skylar? "No, the child is fine." Martha ran a hand over her tired face. "Sit down, Eli, please." We sat on the couch. She adjusted her hands for a moment, clearly choosing the right words. "You remember how I didn't comment when Marcus sent that message to the group? I was too in shock to react at the moment. But later it made me so angry. So last Friday I called Jessica. My heart started beating faster. I wanted to understand what the heck had happened for them to do that to you." "And what did she say?" Martha took a deep breath. "She opened up to me because I think she sees me as an ally. You know, I was always polite to her. I never interfered. So she thought I was going to be on her side." "And what did she say?" "She said that delicate moment thing was a lie. There was no delicate moment. What there was a plan." I felt my blood run cold. "What kind of plan?" "Jessica wanted to distance you because she was planning to remodel the house specifically to convert the guest bedroom, the one you used when you stayed over, into a luxury walk-in closet." I was paralyzed. A walk-in closet? A walk-in closet. She even showed me the Pinterest project. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors, illuminated shelves, all that fancy stuff. $20,000. Martha shook her head in disbelief. And she told me, just like that, straight up, "We can't do the construction with father-in-law coming over all the time. He'll want to give his opinion on everything. He'll complain about the mess. It'll be a headache. So they decided to cut you off." My throat closed up. Cut me off as if I were a weed that needed to be pruned. Martha took my hand. "But there's more." She said something that made me want to reach through the phone and slap her. "What?" "That you were too clingy, that she couldn't stand, that you wanted to come over every weekend, that you wanted to be part of their lives. But here's the kicker. We need his money, so we have to find a way to maintain the cash flow, but without having him close by." The words fell like a brick on my chest. Maintain the cash flow without having me close by, as if I were a faucet they could turn on and off whenever they wanted, but without having to put up with the sound of dripping water. Her. She said that word for word. Word for word. And you know what else? I looked into. Martha took her phone out of her purse and started scrolling, because something didn't add up. They said they were tight on cash, that they didn't have money. But Jessica is always posting photos at expensive restaurants. New clothes, manicured nails. She turned the phone toward me. It was Jessica's Instagram. A photo of a table full of sushi. "Celebrating Friday," the caption read. She kept scrolling. Another photo. Jessica with a designer bag, smiling. "Little gift for me." One more. Her and Marcus at a bar. Colorful drinks on the table. "Date night is sacred." "This is from the last 2 months," Martha said. "While they were crying to you that they didn't have a money. Look what they were doing." I started calculating mentally. That Japanese restaurant. At least $150 for 2 people. The bag I recognized. The brand. No less than $1,000. The constant outings. Each one easily costing $250 to $350. They were burning. "The money I sent." I whispered. "Exactly. And there's more." Martha showed me another photo, this one from 3 weeks ago. Jessica in a decor store, holding fabric swatches. The caution, choosing the details for my dream that's becoming a reality. The walk-in closet. She was already planning that damn closet before kicking me out. "Martha, how did you discover all this?" Because I paid attention to what she didn't say when I talked to her. I asked if they needed financial help, if things were very tight. You know what? She answered, "Oh, it's not that bad. It just needs a few adjustments." Adjustments? The woman who, according to Marcus, can't even pay the mortgage, said they were just adjustments. My blood boiled. It was all planned. It wasn't a moment of anger. It wasn't stress. It was calculated. Coldly calculated. "There's one more thing," Martha said, hesitating. "This one is going to hurt." "Tell me." Marcus. He knew everything from the beginning. She sighed. Jessica let it slip. She said she had talked to Marcus and he agreed that you needed space. She used the plural. Eli. Both of them together. My son. My son, whom I raised alone, whom I clothed, fed, put through school, for whom I sacrificed everything. He was in on it. He knew it was a lie. He knew it was to push me away so they could remodel. And he still sent that message. I got up from the couch and went to the window. I needed air. I needed space to process all this. Eli. Martha's voice came from behind, soft. "I know it hurts, but you needed to know the truth." I turned to her. "Thank you. Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do?" I looked at my sister, this woman who had always been by my side, who had never judged me, who was now here, bringing me the naked truth, even knowing it would break me. "Nothing," I replied. "I'm going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. Nothing." "You're not going to confront them?" "Why? To listen to cheap excuses? To let them invent more lies?" I shook my head. "No. They dug their own hole. Now they're going to have to figure out how to get out." Martha nodded slowly. "And if they lose the house?" That question hung in the air, heavy, real. "They'll learn that when you bite the hand that feeds you, you eventually go hungry," I said firmly. Martha stayed a little longer, but I barely heard what she was saying. My head was elsewhere. I was thinking about that $20,000 walk-in closet, those expensive dinners, those designer bags, all financed by me. All while they told me they were tight on cash, all while they treated me like a burden. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room in the dark, staring at the ceiling, letting the anger and the pain transform into something more solid. Determination. Because now it wasn't just about money or the house or pride. It was about something much bigger. It was about teaching them that love without respect is emotional vampirism, and I was no longer available to be sucked dry. They wanted space, and they were going to have all the space in the world, and along with it, all the consequences. 2 months passed. 60 days of absolute silence from me. 60 days in which their world began to collapse and I just watched. It wasn't easy. There were nights when I held the phone with a trembling hand, almost typing, "Okay, let's talk." There were mornings when I woke up with a tight chest, thinking about Skylar, wondering if she missed me, if she was confused, if she was okay. But every time I weakened, I remembered. I remembered the word anchor. I remembered the blue thumb. I remembered the $20,000 closet that was worth more than my presence, and I held firm. Martha kept me informed, not because I asked her to, but because she thought I had the right to know the damage my absence was causing. In the first week, Marcus tried to negotiate with the bank, asking for an extension on the payment. They got 5 more days borrowed from Eleanor, Jessica's mother. $9,000 to cover the arrears and penalty, but only the penalty. The rest of the bills went unpaid. In the second week they cut the cable, then Jessica's gym membership, then the dinners out. In the third week the bank denied Marcus' loan application. Compromised credit history, they said. Jessica tried to split the bill on her credit card and discovered she was maxed out. They started fighting. Martha found out from Jessica's cousin that they were in crisis. Well, Let them taste the crisis I lived through for 3 years, squeezing myself to keep their life comfortable. In the 4th week, they couldn't pay the second monthly mortgage installment. The bank sent a notice. One more missed payment and the foreclosure process would begin. That's when Marcus showed up here again. It was a Saturday afternoon, almost 3 p.m. I was reading on the balcony when the doorbell rang. 3 short, hesitant rings. I looked through the peephole. It was him, alone, without Jessica. And what I saw shocked me. My son, always so well dressed, always in a clean shirt, with his hair in place. He was a mess, deep circles under his eyes, unshaven, wrinkled shirt. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 2 months. Something stirred inside me, that paternal instinct, that ancient, deep thing that wants to protect, that wants to comfort, that wants to fix. But I didn't open the door. I stayed there, on the other side, looking through the distorted glass of the peephole as he waited. He rang again, then rested his forehead against the door. "Dad, I know you're there. Please just listen to me." Silence. I messed up everything. I know it. I have no excuse. His voice was broken, hoarse. "Jessica and I aren't doing well. She's blaming me. I'm blaming her. And in the middle of it all is Skylar asking, 'Why doesn't Grandpa come anymore?'" My chest tightened when he mentioned my granddaughter. "We couldn't pay the mortgage again. The bank is going to foreclose, Dad. We're going to lose everything." He waited. I remained silent. "I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I treated you like you didn't matter. But Dad, you're all I have. You've always been all I have, and I was too stupid to see it." Tears ran down my face, but I still didn't open the door, because there was a difference between forgiving and being used again, and I wasn't sure where that line was yet. "Okay," he said after a long silence. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry." I heard his steps retreating. I heard the elevator arrive. I heard the door close. And only then did I collapse onto the floor and cry. Because no matter how much he was suffering, no matter how much my father's heart bled, seeing my son like that, a part of me, the part that had been crushed, humiliated, discarded, whispered, "He needs to learn. He needs to understand what he did." A week later, Martha called me. They separated. I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean, separated?" "Jessica filed for divorce. She said she couldn't take the pressure anymore, that it's Marcus's fault for ruining the relationship with his father, who paid for everything, and that she didn't marry him to struggle." My stomach turned. Skylar stays with Marcus during the week, with Jessica on weekends. But Eli, the house, they're going to have to sell it. The bank gave them an ultimatum. Either they pay the arrears plus a penalty, something like $9,000, or it goes to auction. $9,000, a pittance compared to the $195,000 I had already put in there. And Marcus is devastated. According to Jessica's cousin, he's still living in the house, but he can barely get out of bed. He asked for leave from work due to depression. I hung up the phone and stared at a wall. My son was depressed. My son was losing everything, and part of me wanted to run over there, hug him, tell him everything was okay, that I would fix it. But the other part, the part that had learned to value itself, kept me firmly seated in that chair. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't. Love for two. I spent the next few days in internal conflict, until one Thursday night I received a message. Not from Marcus, but from Skylar. It was a voice. Note her sweet little voice. "Grandpa, Daddy, let me send you a message. He's very sad. He cries every day. And I'm sad too because you don't come to see me anymore. You don't love me anymore. Grandpa, my world stopped. You don't love me anymore." That innocent 6-year-old child, thinking she had done something wrong, thinking I had stopped loving her. That night, for the first time in 2 months, I picked up the phone and called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "Dad." His voice was broken, hopeful. "Let's talk," I said, "but not at your house. At my condo. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'll be there. Dad, thank you. Thank you for—" I hung up before he could finish. Because yes, we were going to talk, and he was going to listen to what I had to say. But this time it would be on my terms, in my house, with my conditions. And if he wanted a second chance, he would have to earn it. Because a father's love is infinite, but self-respect is non-negotiable. And I had learned the most painful way possible. That without respect, even the greatest love in the world becomes a prison. And I had chosen freedom. Now it was time to see if he would choose respect. Responsibility. Friday, 3 p.m. sharp. The doorbell rang. I was sitting in the same chair where I usually work, hands folded in my lap, spine straight. I had rehearsed this conversation mentally about 20 times since the night before. I knew exactly what I was going to say, how I was going to say it, and more importantly, what I would not accept. I opened the door. Marcus was standing there with a paper bag in his hand. Inside, I recognized by the sweet smell of apple and cinnamon that cobbler I always made him. "Hello, Dad." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Come in." He walked in slowly, as if treading on sacred ground. He looked around the living room he had known since he was a child, at the photos on the wall, at the couch where we used to watch TV together on Sundays, as if seeing everything for the first time. "Sit down." I pointed to the armchair across from me. He sat down, placing the bag on the coffee table. "I tried to make it the way you do. It didn't turn out the same." "But Marcus," I interrupted him firmly, "it wasn't the cobbler that brought you here." He swallowed heavily. "I know." "Then speak. Say what you came to say." He took a deep breath, his hands trembling. "I've been through hell for the last 2 months, Dad. Not because of the house, not because of the money, but because I finally understood what I did to you." I remained silent, letting him continue. "Jessica, when everything started falling apart, when the money ran out, she showed who she really was. She blamed me for everything. She called me weak, said I ruined everything by letting you go, as if you were an investment she should have held on to better. I heard that and felt a pang, but I let him speak, and that's when it hit me. She never respected you, and worse, I allowed it. I saw how she treated you, badly, made comments, excluded you. And I did nothing because it was easier to agree with her than to defend you. Why?" My voice came out harsher than I intended. "Why was it easier?" He lowered his head. "Because I'm a coward, Dad. I always have been. You raised a strong man, but I chose to be weak." Those words hung between us when we sent that message to the group. I thought I was being mature, setting boundaries, creating independence. But the truth is, I was just being cruel and convenient. He finally looked me in the eye. "Because it was easier to push you away than to confront Jessica." "And the closet?" I asked. "The $20,000 you were going to spend while claiming you were struggling." His face went pale. "You know I know everything, Marcus. The remodeling, the expensive restaurants, the designer bags. I know you burned the money I sent while making me believe you. You were poor." He covered his face with his hands and began to cry. Not the contained crying of an adult man, but the desperate sobbing cry of a child. "I'm so sorry, Dad. So sorry." Part of me wanted to get up, hug him, tell him everything was okay. But the other part, the part that had learned to value itself, kept me firmly in that chair. "Being sorry doesn't fix anything, Marcus. Being sorry doesn't bring back $195,000. Being sorry doesn't erase the word anchor. Being sorry doesn't heal the humiliation." He lifted, his face red and wet with tears. I know I can't fix this, but Dad, I need to try. I need you to know that I've learned." "Learned what? That family isn't about money? that love isn't convenience, that you were the only person in my entire life who was always there. Always. And I threw that away. Why? For a woman who left me at the first sign of difficulty. For a house I'm going to lose anyway. For a lifestyle that was never sustainable. I took a deep breath. And what do you want from me now? Forgiveness, he said simply. Just forgiveness. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you to save the house. I'm just asking for a chance to regain your trust. Even if it takes me years, even if I never fully succeed. I stood up from the chair, went to the window, and looked down at the street. People walking, living their lives, each with their visible and invisible dramas. Marcus, you know what the worst part of all this was? What? It wasn't the money, wasn't the ingratitude. It was realizing that I had lost myself, that I had stopped being Eli Turner, the man who raised a son alone, who worked until his fingers bled, who always had his dignity, to become just Marcus, Dad, the one who existed only to serve, only to give, only to disappear when he was no longer convenient. I turned back to him. And when you kicked me out, you know what happened? I found myself again. He looked at me, tears still flowing. I went back to carpentry classes. I started going out with friends from church. I ate at restaurants alone for the first time in my life and discovered it's nice. I bought a new shirt. I read 4 books. I went to the beach with Martha. I lived, Marcus. For the first time in years, I simply lived without worrying if someone needed me, if someone was going to call, asking for help. If I had to save another $1,800 because maybe you were going to need it. I forgive you, I said, and I saw relief flood his face. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back to who I was. I understand. I don't think you do understand. I returned to the chair. I'm going to make you a proposal, and you're going to accept or reject it. There is no negotiation. The $260,000 I put into your life during these 3 years, plus the $65,000 for the down payment. Let's call it $260,000 total. I want a contract recognizing this debt. Dad, I'm never going to be able to pay that back. Let me finish. My voice was firm, leaving no room for interruption. You're going to pay back 60% of that amount over 5 years. That's $156,000 or $2,600 a month. If you manage to do it, the debt is settled and we start from scratch. If you don't manage it, I paused. The house will be sold, and I will receive my proportional share of what I invested, and I will forgive the other 40%. Consider it a father's gift, but only if you hold up your end. He remained silent, processing. There's more, I continued. I want to resume contact with Skylar, but on my terms, when she wants to see me. Not because you or Jessica think you owe me. Inclusion out of obligation. I no longer accept crumbs of affection. She loves you, Dad, truly. She asks about you every day. Then let me love her too, without interference, without control. Deal. And finally, I took a deep breath. I'm not going back to supporting your life. Not anymore. You're a 35-year-old man, Marcus. It's time for you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. If you need real help, a medical emergency, something like that, I'll be here. But dinner's out, designer bags, luxury walk-in closets. You pay for that with your own money. He nodded, swallowing heavily. I accept all the conditions. Good. On Monday you'll go see Attorney Miller, my lawyer. He already has everything prepared. You sign the contract and we move forward. Marcus slowly stood up. He looked exhausted but also relieved, as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Can I hug you, Dad? I hesitated because part of me was still hurt, still bleeding, but I got up and opened my arms. He hugged me like he hadn't hugged me since he was a boy, tight, desperate, as if clinging to a life raft. "I'm going to get this right this time," he whispered in my ear. "I swear I will." "I hope so," I replied, "because this is your last chance." 8 months have passed since that conversation. Marcus signed the contract. He sold the house. He couldn't keep it, as expected. With the sale money, he paid part of his debt to me, $80,000. He is paying the rest in monthly installments of $900. Some months he has been late, but he has been paying. He moved into a smaller, simpler apartment. Skylar stays with him during the week, and he seems happier, actually. Less tension, fewer fights. Jessica disappeared. She remarried. I heard it was to someone with money, obviously. Marcus and I have lunch once a month. He calls me every week to check in. He never asks for money. Sometimes he asks for advice, and I give it when I feel like it. Ah, my Skylar. She stays here every Saturday. We make hot chocolate, watch movies, build wooden trains. And on those nights, I feel like I recovered something precious. I had lost a true connection. Last week she asked me, "Grandpa, why didn't you come to see me before?" I sat down with her, took her little hands and told her the truth. Adapted for a 6-year-old. Sometimes, my love, we need to step away from those who don't treat us well. Not out of anger, but out of self-love. Because now things are better. Your dad learned that love is about respect. And I learned that I can be happy alone. Today, as I write this, I'm on the balcony of my condo. There's a new painting on the wall. I painted it in art class. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and that's what matters. I've learned something in these almost 69 years of life. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional acceptance of disrespect. You can love someone infinitely and still say no, still set boundaries, still choose your own peace. I forgave my son, yes, but I will never again be that father who erases himself, who disappears, who accepts crumbs. Because I discovered that love without respect is a prison, and I chose freedom. You know, looking back now, I realized that everything I went through had a purpose. Sometimes life has to break us so we can finally rebuild ourselves, stronger, calmer, and wiser. I used to think love meant giving until nothing was left of me. But I learned that real love also means knowing when to stop, when to say, enough. Respect doesn't disappear overnight. It fades every time you let someone treat you like you don't matter. But when you finally stand up for yourself, you discover something beautiful. Peace. And believe me, peace tastes better than approval. If you're going through something similar, don't lose hope. It's never too late to draw the line, to choose yourself, to start over with dignity. Life always gives us second chances, sometimes disguised as endings. If you agree with me and liked my story, show it by giving the video a like. Let's see how many we are. I'm curious, what city and what time are you listening from? Write it in the comments. If you'd like to support me on my journey, you can send a small donation. Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with me. For more life stories like this, check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe on the screen. You'll see 2 new life stories I'm sure you'll love. Click one and start listening now. Love.